much for joining the webinar. We're going to get started. So my name is Brandon Campbell. I am a director on the business development team at Ephesoft. And over the next half hour, I plan to cover content capture for RPA, some key characteristics that indicate whether traditional OCR or intelligent capture is necessary for your bot, and a live demonstration of an end-to-end process with a document capture fed task automation through RPA configuration. Just a quick reminder, please do ask questions in the Q&A window. I promise to address as many of them possible live at the end of the session, and for anything that we can't get to, I will follow up via email with answers to anything you might have. So really quickly to set the table for the topic of intelligent capture as it relates to RPA, I want to touch briefly on the evolution of document capture because it's a really important part of the development of and just the general ideology behind RPA in and of itself. So first we had scanning paper documents and running them through an engine that identified optical mark recognition, things like barcodes and checkboxes. There's a lot of manual intervention involved in it, and that was used for document separation. This led to optical character recognition, which I'm sure most of you know, the engine that converts images and letters into machine-readable text, and intelligent character recognition, which interprets hand-printed text. From there, a template-based approach to identifying documents and extracting fields based on fixed zones or coordinates of a page emerged. And eventually, more innovative tech companies stepped away from this templated approach to utilize rules-based logic for data extraction and content analysis. Then, with the normalization of the word algorithm as it relates to tech and the escalation of available computing power, AI made its way into the document capture space as well. And this pretty much brings us into present day. Right now, clever companies are investing in the development of machine learning and natural language processing to interpret text on documents and records. And eventually, deep learning will be applied for semantic analysis of language and content, as well as sentiment detection. Now, unfortunately, if you're using the document capture tool, whether it's an activity or a VBO that's available out of the box with the RPA system, typically just an OCR engine, you're more than likely stuck in the first or second phase of the evolution of capture. That means that you're getting less from your documents than you should, and you're having to do more work to achieve those menial results. So let's dig into just why that is. So as the RPA market grows, one aspect of process automation has become just incredibly clear. Document intelligence is critical to the success of any RPA implementation. In fact, it's been cited that at least 60% of all business processes involve documents at some portion of their workflow. So from my perspective, this means that intelligent capture technology that uses supervised machine learning for classification and data extraction, rather than a template-based or zonal-specific extraction, is absolutely key to feeding your robots a complete and actionable set of data. I mentioned a few moments ago that most RPA systems are going to offer OCR tools out of the box. In fact, a recently published Gartner report on the RPA market made the assertion that OCR is tangential to the core of RPA. However, if the goal is to truly replace a manual process with a robot, traditional OCR is barely going to scratch the surface of document intelligence. Smart content capture, which is that AI-powered evolution of OCR technology, when we talked about kind of the overall evolution of where we're going, is really required for true process automation. So simply put, there is just a huge world of difference between an OCR engine and an intelligent capture tool. Some OCR products will include tools for text rule pattern or fixed form extraction, but these methods of identifying key text values from a document are very rarely scalable or effective across a variety of document types. And I have an example of that right now. So we have a customer use case that my team just recently encountered. One of our partners had a client that was using Blue Prism to automate an application workflow. And one of the steps in the workflow required the bot to pull text from an application form and then to use that in the workflow to make a routing decision. So in and of itself, that bot, that supervised bot, was automating most of the manual review and uploading and routing and just processing in general around this application, the form itself. But the project team was hitting a wall when it came to working with the actual forms themselves. they've been attempting to use one of the OCR out-of-the-box processes to get the necessary information from within the pages of the form itself. First, the bot would trigger an OCR process to render the document text searchable. Then the bot mimicked a user action of actually opening the file in a PDF reader application on the desktop. And next, the bot would mimic performing a full text search using the Control F function to look for a specific pattern of text. In this particular case, it was a unique identifying number. And if the number wasn't found, the process would error out and a human worker would have to enter the necessary information manually into the backend application. If more than one number met that pattern from the search, the bot activity returned false information to the bot, and the end process would result in incorrectly filed and routed documents and information. So we've got little to no flexibility or scalability. If there's any different version or format or way the document has been laid out, and there's a lot of steps involved in getting information that is more often than not incorrect or undiscoverable. So when we came in, we had a pretty easy solution for it. So with Ephesoft Transact visual-based objects that are available in Blue Prism's Digital Exchange, it's a really easy task to just drag and drop a process into your design studio and to configure the VBO to send documents to a specified Transact server. Now, depending on which VBO you choose for your process, you can pretty easily start a batch of documents to be processed by a selected project. In Transact, we call it a batch class. Just return the extracted values. You can return the split and separated and categorized documents and their associated metadata and more. Now, in the case of our partner's client, which had been struggling with the application form data, we were able to really quickly create a project using key value extraction logic to ensure that the fields identified accurately represented the unique identifier value, not just a random number that matched the pattern, because we were looking at multi-dimensions of the actual field itself in order to determine that it was the appropriate field, which meant that there was no more bad data. It was a much simpler workflow. There were no more error-stalled robots, and their application and review approval process could move forward in a much more automated fashion than what had been happening up to that point. So what's the tipping point? I often get the question, why should I use an additional solution for my documents? Why can't I just use, fill in the blank OCR flavor of your choice for my project? And as a result, I kind of put together a couple of key criteria that are indicators that that traditional out-of-the-box OCR alone is not going to be sufficient to meet the needs of your process automation project. And I think these are pretty good rules to consider anytime you're working on a project that involves a document, which, as we talked about before, there are more than 60% of all organizational processes that include documents. So, number one, if there is any variability in the text or the layout of the documents that are being processed, that traditional OCR is not going to be enough. So, for example, if you consider invoices or purchase orders, OCR alone or OCR used in conjunction with some form of template-based extraction is not going to be usable if that template varies, and every vendor is going to have a widely different invoice layout than the other vendors that your organization or your client might be working with. For two, if the files need to be separated into individual documents prior to inclusion in an automated process, such as stacks of documents being scanned in batch, the OCR alone is going to fall short of expectations in the ability to separate those out and then extract the metadata from each unique document that was once a part of a stack. And then the third major characteristic I would consider would be if there's repetition in the key values or the index fields. So maybe you have multiple dates or addresses in a contract or a mortgage loan, and you need that date information for the document workflow. OCR alone is not going to accurately extract the necessary data because you need to take multiple data points from that overall document to verify that you're getting the appropriate data field for that web or for that robot moving forward. So those are going to be some of the big things to look for when you're working with a traditional OCR out-of-the-box solution within your RPA system. Now, at Ephesoft, the purpose of our intelligent capture platform, Transact, is to truly support automated document conversion, categorization, data extraction, in order to accelerate your time to process information and to overcome those expensive human or incorrectly configured bot OCR errors. So we use a combination of supervised machine learning and rules-based logic to achieve high accuracy of extracted metadata. And we've decreased, just in general with our clients, document-specific processing time by more than 80% for many of our customers. We only need a handful of samples for the document types that we're training, which means that you can see results in an incredibly quick fashion, as opposed to having to, wait for the machine learning results to demonstrate some type of output. So as it relates to RPA, we're very happy to say that we have formalized technology partnerships with the top 3 rated RPA systems on the market per Gartner's latest market study, which are UiPath, Blue Prism, and Automation Anywhere. And these pioneering industry-leading technology companies recognize the value of capture more than OCR and are actively seeking relationships with businesses that can provide this level of non-templatized, enterprise scalable document capture. So that's where we come in. Now, I want to, at this point, dive into a demonstration showing you that end-to-end process automation piece. And I'm going to touch on in a little bit after the demo how we work with RPA systems that aren't necessarily our existing technology partners. But let's start off with an end-to-end demo. So what I have here is I have the UiPath Studio open. I have a pretty simple workflow configured where we're monitoring an email inbox for invoices. We're going to pull out some metadata from the invoices. We're going to perform any validation if there are any fields that fell below the confidence threshold of the Ephesoft Transact application once it captured the data. And then that information is going to automatically be populated into an ERP system with some email notifications along the way. It's a pretty common workflow, something that you would expect in any organization that has an accounting department. Now what I have here is I have a batch of invoices here. I think I've got 5 or 6 invoices that have just been scanned in all as one single document. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to mimic the act of sending an email with invoices to an accounting department. So I'm going to create a message. I'm going to say this goes to the AP department at company.net. I'm going to attach my batch of documents, my batch of invoices here that we just saw. I'm going to say, please process. And then I'm going to go ahead and send. Now, what's going to happen is that this particular workflow that we're looking at right now in the UiPath Studio is monitoring that inbox, and it's going to go ahead and take in that content, and it's going to kick off a workflow that takes that batch of documents and sends it over to the Ephesoft Transact server. Now, if I minimize this output file here, what you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen are the activities that are available for download within the UiPath Go marketplace, specific for Ephesoft Transact. And it includes things like categorizing and classifying documents, starting a batch, again, what Transact calls a project within our application, just getting the extraction values. There are a ton of activities available specific to what your bot is looking for. But the one that we're using is to trigger a batch of documents and send the content back to the bot for processing. Now, I got a notification here that a batch of documents or invoices are ready for quality check. And what's going to happen is when I click on this link, it's going to trigger the Ephesoft Transact validation user interface, which is going to allow an accountant, an end user, a business user to simply access this user interface within Transact, which we call the validation user interface, and verify that the information that we extracted as an application is correct. So in this case, I can see here that the invoice number field is highlighted in red. which means that the application was unable to capture this information. So if I simply enter the information manually, I think that's 7322, and say validate, it'll move on to the next field. And once again here, the fields highlighted in red is just letting me know why it is calling out this field for additional human validation. In this case, it's because the OCR confidence threshold that we've set for this field falls below that minimum value. So I can simply hit validate again because I can see here that it matches the number on the page. And it'll move on throughout the rest of the documents for anything that needs to be touched. If the validation is completed, there wasn't anything that needed to be addressed, I could simply hit OK. And what's going to happen is that UiPath, those documents are going to be routed back into the RPA system, and it's going to trigger UiPath to ingest the information and then start entering that information automatically into the ERP system of your choice. In this case, what we're doing is we're creating vouchers, or I apologize, not we. The bot is creating vouchers for the invoices themselves and uploading and entering that information based on the metadata that Transact extracted automatically. So again, taking what was once a highly manual process and turning it into a true end-to-end automated workflow. Now, once all of these vouchers, these tickets have been created in and of themselves, what's going to happen is that we're just going to get another email notification letting us know that the tickets were created. And I can see here, I'm getting a notification here. The batch is complete, the tickets have been created, and I'm getting a confirmation number, which was generated by that ERP system. Automatically letting me as Mrs. Accountant know that these invoices are complete in their process. So that's just a quick, end-to-end workflow, how we work with multiple different applications and just act as that document intelligence engine to power the overall process that touches multiple applications. Now, before we move back into the slideshow, I just wanted to do just a quick overview of the Transact user interface. So this is the Ephesoft Transact home screen. What we were looking at earlier was the user validation interface, where an end user has the ability to verify or correct information that was extracted. And if I take a look at the administrator view, I can look at a couple of different things within the application. Clicking Batch Class Management is simply going to give me a preview of all of the projects or batches that have been created that I personally have access to. So as an administrator, I can see pretty much everything. And if I open up this invoice processing project, which is the batch class that we use to process those invoices just in that demo a few moments ago, I can see here that there's a handful of documents that have been trained as a part of this project to be automatically recognized. And to do that, to teach the system how to recognize documents, all I have to do is select the document type and then drag and drop a sample document into this upload learn files bucket here. And once I do that, the application behind the scenes is going to start to take a look at all of the information that's present on that page and create a learning model for recognizing these types of documents moving forward. So the process of actually training the system what to look for when we're looking at document types is incredibly simple, and that's why I called out our need for very minimal samples when we're creating projects. If I open this invoice document type here, I can see a list of fields similar to the previous screen that have been identified for pieces of information we would like to extract from these documents. So it's fairly simple to interact with, to understand, and to train documents and fields within the application. All right, so minimizing back out of this screen, something that I wanted to talk about a little bit more was how we work with third-party applications, whether it be an RPA system or a business process management tool that we don't have an existing technology relationship with. So we recognize that not every organization is going to be purchasing these RPA systems from the leading 3 vendors. And it's just one more reason that Ephesoft stands out in the sea of traditional capture companies. We can tie very easily into any robotic process with a lightweight web services call. So in the case where that visual-based object hasn't been created so that you can just drag and drop it into your workflow, or an activity isn't available for download from your RPA's digital marketplace, we offer a wide variety of open API calls for integrating Transact with your RPA system. We can do as little as, just image processing, where we're performing that page cleanup and that document splitting. We can do the OCR conversion in and of itself. We can just do document classification, or we can kind of cover everything. And we have more than 60 unique web service APIs that are available to call different functionality and different aspects of the overall Transact Capture platform. So being able to integrate with your application on the back end, no matter what it is, no matter what system you're using for processing data downstream, is fairly straightforward, and we are highly platform agnostic. So that's the overall information I wanted to convey. I do have a couple of questions here that I would like to address. So one question here was, how do we extract key fields from the invoices that aren't based on templates? So we're using a combination of basically machine learning tied with rules-based logic. So we're doing a combination of things like defining regular expression in addition to looking to key values that exist around that particular field that we're looking for. So for example, if you have invoice number and then the invoice number itself, we're going to use those two data points as anchors to look for information and look at the relationship between how those two values relate. We can also do things like fuzzy database lookup, where we're doing real-time lookups into vendor database tables, or we can perform table-based extraction to identify information that exists within a table. So that's going to be the big difference between a template-based approach versus that non-templated, unstructured data extraction approach. I also had another question about the difference in accuracy between something that's template-based and something that is not template-based. I don't have any specific metrics in front of me. I think the biggest downfall you're going to see with a template-based approach is going to be scalability. So it's incredibly difficult to create a template. Let's take invoices again, for example, for every single variation of an invoice that you come across, in addition to not even considering the fact that invoices can vary in page length depending on how many line items are listed. So that's going to be the biggest struggle that you're going to see with a template-based approach. Another challenge with template-based approaches is that if a document has been printed or faxed out, even if it's a fixed form, you might see some variation in, how that document is skewed, or how the sizing of the boxes on a fixed form might be slightly different from one printout to another printout. So you can see risk there. So I can't give you a one-to-one comparison on accuracy levels, but I can pretty much guarantee that a non-templated approach is going to be much more scalable across a larger variety of document types. All right, I also had another question. Can you OCR documents of other languages except the most popular, English, German, and Spanish? Yes, that's absolutely possible. So we work with a huge variety of languages. I would recommend, if you take a look at the Ephesoft docs page, there's a comprehensive list of all of the languages that are available. So yes, we do support a wide range of languages. The next question I had was whether there are any out-of-the-box connectors built for Automation Anywhere. No, not at the moment. We do not have an out-of-the-box connector built, but it's something that we're currently and actively working on. We've recently finalized and formalized a technology partnership with Automation Anywhere, so we're in the process of building those connectors currently. So that is underway as we speak. I do not have an ETA, but I can definitely follow up on that. I had another question here asking whether the data that's extracted from invoices is in the format of an XML or a CSV, so that the bot will then extract the desired data from that XML or the CSV. It's up to you how you would like the data to be exported. That's entirely configurable. Typically, I would say that the standard would be to, or the default would be to export the data as an XML along with the associated PDF. But we support a variety of export output formats. It's kind of just, what you need for that particular workflow or what that bot needs from an ingestion perspective. All right, I had another question here. So there is a huge push from AI firms that are tackling machine and handprint recognition with machine learning. This is gaining traction within the RPA marketing, and we're seeing the RPA market, and we're seeing higher extraction rates than legacy ICR technology. How is Ephesoft tackling this, and does it have a machine learning solution for machine or handprint? Yeah, so I can definitely address ICR technology. So how we tackle handprint documents at the moment is purely based on fixed form extraction. So in order to utilize an ICR engine, we require fixed form extraction just because of the high variability that exists in handprint in and of itself. That being said, we are very open as, Transact is very open as an application. So if you have an existing ICR engine that works for you, that you're seeing high accuracy results from, we can absolutely do an API call to that ICR engine to incorporate that text output as a part of our overall workflow and use that in conjunction with our, extraction and categorization methods. But that's, if you have a product that you've personally worked with and, are seeing positive results from. But we can definitely follow up with that in greater detail offline and maybe chat a little bit more about your use case and find out how we would approach that. Any other questions at this point? Please do send me an email. I'd be more than happy to follow up with you directly. Thank you all so much for joining, for your time, and please feel free to reach out. Have a great afternoon, everybody.